Welcome to the WanderLearn Show. I'm your host, Francis Tapon. I'm here with Michael Zervos. This is my eighth interview with him, my eighth podcast, where we talk about him going to every single country on the planet faster than anybody else. And guess what? He has pulled it off. Congratulations, Michael.
Thanks, Francis. Yeah, coming to you from Detroit, Michigan, where I grew up. Glad to be back. I've been here almost 3 weeks now.
Amazing. So 3 weeks ago you ended. Tell us just the overview of the journey. How long did it take? How many days? And how many countries?
Right. So I started January 17th of 2024, and it took me 499 days. I got back May 30th. So about what is it? Almost 3 weeks ago. And yeah, my last country. So I went from Toronto to Detroit. Technically, my last country was the US. Guinness starts the clock as soon as you board your first mode of transportation. So on my way to Russia from Detroit, that means I start from zero. Russia was my first, US was my last.
How did you feel? Was there a family waiting for you, or did you just go to the first Greek restaurant there and just eat a bunch of food?
In some ways, it was anticlimactic because I knew that I was going to break it about a month before I actually did it. Once I got through, I would say, Venezuela, maybe Haiti. Once all of those trickier countries, I got through those. It was pretty smooth sailing. Yeah, I was deported in Nicaragua. That was a bit of a surprise. So that could have crushed my attempt, but I was about a month and a half away, and I knew that it was going to happen. So in a sense, if I had maybe the last country was North Korea, for some reason it hadn't opened until then, it would be extremely climactic, suspenseful. People would be waiting on bated breath to see if I did it. But this was just, it was a nice and easy ride in. And I knew that there was going to be friends and family that were waiting for me in Detroit. Of course, my awesome sponsor, iVisa, had arranged this huge celebration with I had a hat, I had t-shirts. They gave me a big, like a gold medal. There were little billboards. The press was there. I had family and friends there. And then the day after that, I was totally surprised with my larger Greek family as well as friends at a restaurant. They told me I was going to go out to dinner, and it's funny. My grandmother was with her. She's like, "I don't want you to wear what you're wearing." I was wearing like some just bullshit. I was wearing stupid stuff. I'm like, why not? I was wearing a bucket hat with the world on it and an open collared shirt, floral pattern, like I was going to some Hawaiian restaurant. And she's like, no, 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 I don't want you to do that. It may be my last time ever having dinner with you. So that's like the Greek like guilt that you get. And she used it to her advantage because it was a surprise party. And that was a beautiful thing too.
Well, that's amazing. Tell us about your details about your Nicaragua deportation.
Yeah, well, I wish I had more information than what happened, the reason why. But essentially, I bought a ticket to go there on my US passport. It was like a month before I did it. And literally the day before I was supposed to leave from Costa Rica to Nicaragua, well, I got an email not from the government, but through the airline. It was some small airline saying, you are you cannot be boarded. You're not onboardable, and you'll have to take it up with the Nicaraguan immigrations. And called the airline, tried to figure out what was going on, and I was just stuck in Costa Rica. So I'm like, I got to get in there. So I had two options: either land border or buy another ticket overseas or by air. So I used my Greek passport, bought an Avianca ticket, and there was no issues. I got to the airport. They boarded me on the plane. I arrived. I went to immigration. And about, 3 minutes in, I realized that there was going to be a problem because the woman was she was polite, and then she started to get a little bit more stern, and then she was cross, and then she brought her supervisor over, and then the supervisor took my passport back into a back room, came back and got some more questions, went back, came back, said, "Do you have another passport?" I'm like, "Oh, all right, well." It was fun while it lasted. I gave him my second American passport, not the one that was declined, just because I thought I might get into more trouble if I gave him the one that was not admissible. So they took it. They were in there for another 15 minutes as everyone cleared off the plane, and he came back and he was furious. He pulled me by the backpack back through the gate out into the where you would be waiting to board the plane, and they had a couple people from the army, a couple immigrations officers just sitting around me. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't use my phone, but I managed to record everything that happened from the moment I was basically pulled into the gate, I just kind of covertly started my camera. And yeah, they wanted to send me back to Miami. And I pleaded with them, hey, I have a ticket to El Salvador next. Can you board me on that? Just so happened there was a flight to El Salvador like 20 minutes later. So they just threw me on that plane. I got my witnesses from the airline. I got my GPS tracker. I got some proof that I was there with, my covert camera, the conversations that I had. Yeah, it was pretty wild. The only country that I'd been deported from, and still I don't know why.
That's so bizarre. That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Your best guess?
My best guess is that because I create videos, I interview people, the Ortega regime does not typically like journalists, especially foreign journalists, YouTubers, Instagrammers. Maybe they saw at the very top at that point in time, there was a video about North Korea. I wasn't so flattering about North Korea. I didn't like decimate the country either, but maybe they just didn't like what I said and they thought I would do the same thing.
So that brings up my question I want to ask you, which is give me three surprises. I'm going to put that as one of the three surprises. Give me two other surprises.
Yeah, that was definitely a surprise. I don't think anybody knew that that was coming. I think one of the other big surprises was the amount of people who were willing, just generally across the world, who were willing to sit down and talk to me about happiness. I don't want to say, I mean, not every country or region was the same. You get a lot more people who are more open to this line of questioning than others. But generally speaking, going up to strangers around the world, asking them about happiness turned out to be pretty successful. And I got interviews from all over the world about it. I think a lot of people were imagining that I would get, one word responses or people clamming up as soon as they talk to a stranger. And occasionally it happened, but it was a pleasant surprise to experience that level of generosity when it came to people's time as it relates to a perfect stranger
But you didn't do that in Nicaragua, I imagine.
No, unfortunately not. So I do have people lined up. I had like 5 interviews lined up, and not a single one of them wanted to interview with me afterwards because they were worried I was like persona non grata there and they would get into trouble. So I need to find new Nicaraguans, probably ones that have left the country. So it still counts in my project, but it isn't the way that I typically do it. I don't have any other choice though.
Give me a third one. So the first one is Nicaragua deportation. Second one is how easy it was, relatively speaking, to get people to talk about happiness. Third, surprise.
Yeah. Let's see.
You're going to every country in the world faster than anybody else. You probably expected it to be a pain in the ass and
Well,
difficult.
yeah. Here's one of them. Okay. I work in the movie industry almost 14 years now. Movies, you plan and plan and plan, and usually there's about 95% that go correctly. And the 5% can be magic. It's incredible. We call it occasionally happy accidents, things that end up on screen where actors improv, especially in comedy, whatever. Those are awesome. That's what makes it really exciting. But you plan that much to have that 5% of latitude. Now, when it comes to traveling like this, I wanted 100% to work out completely the way that I had planned it. But I wasn't expecting that, right? It turns out my route was about 93, 94% worked out totally the way I expected.
Wow.
And about that 5% worked out, in different ways, but they were the ones that I wasn't sure about to begin with, like North Korea, Sudan. We weren't exactly sure how that was going to play out. And at that time, I didn't have my Greek passport. I needed to renew it. So if something went wrong with the military waiver that I was trying to get, then I would have to get into Venezuela a different way. But that did actually end up working out the way it did. So just the fact that everything went almost entirely to plan was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that is surprising. I got to give credit to your sponsor. They're not my sponsor, they're yours, ivisa.com. That without them, I think this journey would never have been able to work out as well as it did and take away. They were able to kind of mitigate a lot of those surprises.
The sponsors that I picked were based off of the observations I made of people who had attempted this record before, either the ones that had made it or the ones that didn't quite break the record and had failed along the way. and I tried to somehow figure out some of my deficits, the things that I didn't want to do, that I wouldn't have time with, the things that I could cut down in terms of time. And one of those things, a big thing, was the paperwork involved. And there's no way I would have been able to do the happiness stories on top of the visa paperwork. Just right out, no way. And to
Right.
film all of the things that I did in every country. I mean, most of my time was spent as soon as I got out of the airport, I was hitting the streets, talking with people, filming things, taking tours, whatever it is. I wasn't in an embassy waiting
Right.
to get paperwork.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a big deal. And as somebody who's been to all the African countries, that's just a perfect example of where visas can really slow down the journey in a major way. And you're not just
Yeah.
talking about days, but sometimes weeks, even months. So that journey was that their help iVisa was really helpful for you, and that's a great tip for anybody who wants to check it out. Now, what about your regret? Give me one regret, Michael, that you have from this journey. Now, you did a great job. You completed your mission, but something you have to regret something.
Yeah, one thing that I don't know, maybe I would have done in hindsight, it would have costed me more money, is to maybe split the journey, the way that I was telling the story of the journey into two different social media accounts. Maybe one would have been about the stories of happiness, and the other one would have been about the actual record breaking experience, because I noticed a lot of people had so many questions about my personal experiences, the day to day, what I was doing versus the interview. And the interviews were the things that motivated me on a thematic, maybe a spiritual and emotional level, these sorts of things. And then the physical and mental, I was getting stimulation from trying to break the record. So I tried putting those in both one social media account, and I found it difficult to balance the storytelling of both of those. And in many ways, social media tries to pigeonhole you and put you in a particular niche. And I'm not a travel logger. And I talk about happiness, which is something like more like self-help and all that sort of thing, rather than travel logging. And if you're kind of combating yourself on a single account. So it would have been a lot more work. Maybe I would have needed a social media manager and I would just upload the stuff and then they would handle it. But I was trying to save money and put all of it towards what I was doing in travel. And I thought maybe arrogantly or foolishly that I could handle all of this stuff on one account.
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, if that's your one regret, well, it's probably not your only regret, but it's pretty. You did pretty well, I think,
Thanks.
overall. What about three countries that you would want to revisit, like high on the list, and then one country you're like, you know what, I don't need to go back.
Um, well, there's plenty of I mean, to be fair, I would go to every country in the world again. I wouldn't do the whole record thing again because I'd rather go to them again in a more slow way and to go deeper rather than go quickly. But that can happen over the course of my life, and I would certainly deprioritize some over the others. Okay, if I were to mention, let's say, three countries in different parts, different regions of the world, just to be fun about it, I would say one would be Madagascar. I adored it. I think the biodiversity is stunning. The people I adored. I'd love to visit parts of the country that are much more remote and learn about tribal systems and see some of the flora and fauna. I'd love to see the north of the country. I thought the food was extremely rich and different and quite unique compared to the rest of Africa. So that's one of them.
I walked
Uh,
across Madagascar from north to south, so I've got that checklist done of having explored Madagascar fairly well. And
yeah,
you're right, it is quite a remarkable place.
yeah. I know I'll be getting some tips from you when I decide to do that. But another one is Myanmar. I think a trend in the countries that I would go back to, and this isn't a rule, but maybe something that I've noticed is that people who are uh, maybe shy but authentic, who aren't caught up in the future of things too like planning too far ahead, invested too much in the future, people who are kind of in the present now, cultures that value being present with you are places that I really adore and I want to be around. I found that to be the case in Madagascar. I also found that to be the case in Burma. And given the fact that the country wasn't the safest to travel outside of Yangon and probably Mandalay Bay, given what's going on there, I would love to go back in the future and to meet more people, interview them, to spend time in rural villages. There was something nakedly beautiful about the way that I interacted with people there. It was difficult because not many people spoke English, and that was also the benefit because the tourism is so built up that you get people like trying to manipulate you or con you. It's just like you get what you get there, and the Buddhist temples there are extraordinary. I thought the food was wonderful. I can't wait to go back. And then to make the other one, I'm gonna give you maybe a basic one, maybe not. I don't know. Bolivia, I loved. I thought Bolivia was one of those places where modernity hasn't really caught up to the country yet. You see the traditions of the people even in urban centers. And in this way, the pre-Columbian traditions are pretty open for you to explore. They don't feel like they're put on. They're not like trying to manipulate you for your money. In some ways, when you go to Calle de Bruja or something like that, yeah, okay, it's partly for tourists. But generally speaking, tradition is front and center there in Bolivia, and I really love that. And the geography of the country is extraordinary.
Any place you would not want to go back to?
Okay, I picked on this country a bit. It's just part of it is because I don't speak French. I didn't really connect with the people. Comoros. It's also a really small island. A lot of the smaller islands, it's like, okay, they're not going to be higher on the list because there's just not, they cost an arm and a leg to get out there. And once you're out there, unless you're a beach person or a diving person, I like those things, but I could go to more accessible beaches and beaches that are probably just as beautiful in other countries and also have the culture to boot. So Comoros, it's nice. It didn't speak to me like many other islands or even many other countries.
That's interesting because I spent, I think, 3 weeks in Comoros and I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Especially because I got to go to the tallest mountain of Comoros, which is like this volcano. And I
Yeah.
thought that was remarkable. And that they have these 3 islands, if I remember correctly. And that seemed pretty good. I would have thought that something like Vanuatu or I don't know, I've never been to Vanuatu or Kiribati, these really tiny Pacific islands that are pretty much flat atolls that nothing much to see there. This again, I've never been there, so I'm just imagining that would be less geographically diverse than Comoros.
Yeah, well, Vanuatu does have a rather well-known volcano that you can fly to,
Okay.
and it's got some beautiful beaches. I really liked the culture. I found to be quite interesting there. I liked, drinking kava with some of the locals. I was with a lot of the people from the tourism bureau, and they showed me a good time. Kiribati, yeah, quite small, remote. Maybe maybe there's multiple reasons why I wouldn't go back there, but. Tuvalu is probably not going to be around for another 15 or 20 years because of rising sea levels. So that I found it to be relatively boring. Very nice people, very kind people. I was treated well. To get back to that, it would be very expensive and it's kind of boring.
Remind people where to follow you and where to keep up with you.
Yeah, so you can find me. My website is project-cosmos with a K.com. On Instagram, the Project Cosmos, and across Facebook. Now I'm posting on Facebook. I'll be posting on YouTube soon, on TikTok, the Project Cosmos as well. So you can find me nearly across every social.
And if you've been watching this on YouTube, I'll be posting a few of the videos that Michael and I have filmed over the course. We've got 7 of them. This one's the 8th. And you'll see some of the links for that in the show notes below and links to the website. Everything will be down below. Michael, once again, congratulations on being the fastest person to travel to all the countries in the world. You did it. Congratulations, man.
Thank you, Francis.